Hello everybody, Jediwarlock here, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. First off, I want to thank everybody who has supported the channel recently by watching, liking, commenting, or subscribing. Since my 100 subscriber special only about 3 weeks ago now, we have already hit almost 150 subscribers, which is pretty insane to think about. Thank you all, and I'm excited to see what happens next. Secondly, you might notice that my voice sounds a little bit different today, and that's because I recently upgraded to a new microphone that is going to be a lot better for recording my videos. And hopefully the quality is better for you all on the other end, so let me know what you think. I wanted to get this video out sooner, but I decided to wait until the microphone arrived just to increase the quality of the finished video. Now, many of you have probably heard of the new zone that's going to be introduced with Update 32 to LotRO, the Angle of Mitheithel. This is the second zone of its kind, with the first being, of course, the Wildwood subzone located north of Bree. I won't spend a ton of time discussing this today, as my fellow LotRO content creators already have some great videos on the topic, but today, in honor of Standing Stone Games continuing to expand the world of Middle-earth, I want to cover my top 10 favorite future zone ideas for Lord of the Rings Online. I found an excellent map on the LotRO Wiki by the user Vargadin, and I'll be using their future zones boundaries to make my list. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. Now, the first two zones on this list, while not the most exciting or substantive, I believe could work really well as subzones just like the Angle and the Wildwood. I think both of these zones could have a different level range to give new and returning players more options of where to quest in and level throughout Eriador. The first is the Southfarthing of the Shire, which is, unsurprisingly, located to the south of the current in-game boundary of the Shire. The hedge gate located past the Shire housing instance, and the path to the south of Stock could easily be opened up to allow players to explore this last area of the Shire. This zone could be for players levels 20 to 30, acting as a substitute for some of the Lonelands and the North Downs. In terms of story, the questing could involve you helping the local bounders defend the area from a more serious brigand threat from the Southlands. Considering the Shire comes under attack from evil men at the end of the Lord of the Rings, this could serve as the perfect setup for this chapter, or even a total replacement if Standing Stone Games decides not to include the Shire invasion from the books in the game. Coming in at number 9, I have the possible subzone of the Graham Ridges. This mountainous region is located to the west of the North Downs and to the north of the Lonelands, but I think it makes more sense for the story and theme to be tied to the North Downs area. It would make a lot of sense for there to be a path in the corner of the North Downs near Dol Dinen, leading further up into the slopes, and it would be the perfect continuation of the North Downs storyline for adventurers level 35 to 40, allowing them to bypass some of the Trollshaws if they so choose. From a story perspective, this area makes a lot of sense, as it could explain the source of the orc presence in the North Downs, and give players a more expansive look at where and how the orcs and goblins have amassed their hordes in the mountains of Eriador. Next up at number 8, we have the Tower Hills, also known in-game as the Far Downs. When Frodo and Sam see the elves in Fellowship of the Ring and say they're going to the harbor past the White Towers, those towers are located here, in between the Shire and Ered Luin. While I'm not entirely sure what the story could be here, I think a more important aspect to consider is the possibility of changes to the in-game world that could happen if this area is added. Ered Luin at this point in time is really the only major zone not to be connected to the rest of the world, and you currently have to use a portal to get to the Shire, which isn't a huge deal, but it does break the immersion of the game slightly. Adding in the Far Downs would give Standing Stone Games an opportunity to engineer Arid Luin in the same world map as the rest of LotRO, which I think would be a great update to the game. Oh yeah, and adding the Far Downs would open up the possibility of adding the Grey Havens down the road, which I'll get to in just a minute. Located in the south of Eriador, between the Grey Flood and Brandywine rivers, the wilderness known as Minhyath was once inhabited by the first Númenóreans to sail across the sea to Middle-earth. They established the ancient city of Lond Dare, now abandoned, and according to the lore, the whole region is now essentially unpopulated following the Witch King's invasion of Cardalon. I think it would be cool to someday explore this area in-game and maybe unearth some of the earliest history regarding the Númenórean people in the area. It's also mentioned that some type of hunter folk live in the area or the nearby area of Arien Vorn, which could open up some interesting storytelling options as Aragorn and the Free Peoples begin to recolonize the old kingdom of Arnor. Plus, after seeing Lond Dare in Minecraft Middle-earth, I really just want to see it in-game. Described by Gimli as an impassable labyrinth of razor-sharp rocks, the mountains of Eminmu are where Frodo and Sam first meet Gollum in the Two Towers, and are pretty much the last location in the Journey of the Fellowship not to be added to the game yet. This area, along with the Nindolf marshlands to the south, I think would be great side additions to the game to make it feel even more immersive and complete as a replica of Middle-earth. Similarly to what I was saying with the Far Downs, this could be an opportunity for the dead marshes to be reworked slightly and imported into the full game world, which as of now exist basically as an instant zone that you teleport to in Western Gondor, which I always thought was kind of odd. And hey, who wouldn't want to finally be able to travel through the entire path of the Lord of the Rings characters all in one go? I can already see the title now, Fellow of the Fellowship, or something corny like that the developers tend to write. In the far east of Middle-earth lies the Realm of Rune, a land that historically has caused a lot of problems for the people of Rohan and Gondor in the first 3 ages of Middle-earth. The people of Rune allied with Sauron during the War of the Ring, and we got to see some of them in-game coming from the Brown Lands east of the Great River, and again during the battles in Gondor, though some of those were the men of Harad and Khand as well. In-game, we also know that armies and the people of Rune, specifically from the region of Dorwinion, made war against the Dale Lands and the Lonely Mountain, which we learn much about in our time questing there. From what we know from the refugees that remain in the area, it is far too dangerous for them to return to their homelands, and the Jangovar armies that enslaved the people of Dorwinion could still hold sway in the region. If we do ever go there in-game, there is the potential for us to meet and work with the 2 blue wizards, which I think would be very cool. This would be a pretty natural progression of the Easterling storyline we've seen in the Dale Lands and the Iron Hills so far. The refugees had no choice but to escape here, and something or someone now controls the East, likely as a result of Sauron's influence. As we all know, the Grey Havens are the final setting in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where Frodo, Gandalf, and the Elf Ringbearers depart Middle-earth for the Undying Lands. This is essentially the last area in Middle-earth elves travel to in order to board ships that take them across the sea. I think this would be a cool area to see in-game, but maybe not for another couple of years, since there are still some more exciting and relevant regions to add first. I'm not sure what the story could be for this zone, besides maybe a special elf-only questline that involves you getting ready to depart Middle-earth. But maybe with all the elves in the area leaving, you and the other players are tasked with maintaining the area and protecting it from goblins in the Blue Mountains or something. Maybe in keeping with the epic story, you could even escort Frodo and Gandalf to the harbor in the very last chapter of the epic story, which would be incredible. Not to project a game dying sentiment by any means, but in the unfortunate case that LotRO stops receiving updates someday, I would definitely vote for the Grey Havens to be the last update added to the game, and I think it would make a great conclusion to both the in-game story and the game's history as a whole. Now, as we're all aware of, LotRO has done Southern Mirkwood, which I will say was pretty good. They've done Northern Mirkwood, which was less than good, and now Standing Stone Games has a chance to finish off the trilogy with Middle Mirkwood and the Narrows. In what I believe is part of the Vales of Anduin and maybe the Northern Mirkwood questline, it is established that after the fall of Sauron, South Mirkwood would belong to the Lothlorien Elves, Northern Mirkwood would belong to the Wood Elves under King Thranduil, and Middle Mirkwood would be given to the Wilderfolk and Beornings to colonize and govern for themselves. I think Middle Mirkwood is pretty likely to happen in the future of the game, and in my opinion would be a great way to introduce an outlet into some of the eastern lands such as Rune, and maybe a more complete version of the Brown Lands we got a glimpse of in the Great River Zone. If done correctly, Middle Mirkwood could be an awesome forest zone, and could effectively introduce some new threats or objectives now that both the forces of Dol Guldur and the spiders of Mirkwood have been defeated. Located to the south of Bree and the Lonelands are the Riverlands and the Grey Flood Plains, an area of swampy lowlands where the great north-south road travels between Bree and the lands of Enedwaith. The once great Númenorian city of Tharbad also lies here in ruin, and all that remains is a crumbling city amid the fens and reeds. I would be really excited to see this region added to the game, and the gates in Breeland and Enedwaith could be opened up to properly extend the road all the way from Fornost to Isengard, as is stated in the lore. While it's not exactly certain what happens to this area after the timeline of Lord of the Rings, it is implied that the Gondorian people began to colonize the area north of Dunland after the war, so we could see some sort of quest line revolving around an expedition re-entering the area and dealing with some lingering threats to the restoration effort. Perhaps one of the most teased and realistic possibilities to be added to the game is the Realm of Nirn, a region south of Mordor responsible for Mordor's food and water sources. Not only is this area already listed prominently on the in-game map of Mordor, but there are also several lore references to the area within the quests, the most recent of which, that I could find, took place during the Mitheithel reclamation. Part of the questline involves you hunting down a pack of orcs intent on traveling to Nirn, which to me indicates the forces of the enemy are still active in that area and could be a viable future challenge for players in the aftermath of Sauron's defeat. This was an area featured in the Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor game series, and so there is obviously already some inspiration that Standing Stone Games could draw from if they wanted to make this region in a future expansion to LotRO. I personally really like the idea of seeing more of the Mordor area besides just Mount Doom and the Morgul Vale. Seeing a lush, fertile area still overrun by the last fragments of Sauron's forces would be pretty cool, and I think it would be a great chance for LotRO to experiment with introducing some of the far lands of Middle-earth to see how players respond. So, there you have it, my top 10 regions in Middle-earth that I think would be great additions to LotRO in the future. I really enjoyed researching these places on the Lord of the Rings wiki and thinking about where I could see my characters exploring in the coming years. I'm sure there are others I left off the list that would be equally compelling, so comment down below what spots you want to visit in future LotRO updates. Once again, thanks to Vargadin for creating the Future Regions map I referenced in this video. It gave me inspiration to create this list in the first place. Wherever Standing Stone Games decides to take us next, I look forward to seeing you all in Middle-earth. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new to join the Jedi Order, comment down below with your thoughts, and until next time, peace.